Now, Lies. Oh, we do the podcast in English today,
Okay,
right? Is that okay?
that's okay. It's harder, but it's okay.
It's funny when you don't know and you get surprised. We do the podcast in English.
Yeah.
Nice. Um, yeah, I thought so. Today, I thought it'd be fun to talk about your journey with meditation,
Yeah.
uh, what it's done for you, and what your journey with it has been. And it's been quite a long time since you've been meditating and doing Vipassana meditations in particular. Um, and I've been obviously following your journey because we've been friends since we met at university a
Yeah.
long time ago. And I thought it'd be interesting to talk about that maybe and whatever comes up today. And also a little bit about the B12 shortage that you've experienced, as that's been a whole journey in itself. Uh, yeah, so I thought those might be cool topics for the day. And if anything else comes up, then, you know,
Perfect.
that's great too. So, is there anything you want to begin with?
No, not sure. This is my first time, so
Yeah, for me, it's second. So, I thought maybe we can just start with how we know each other.
yeah.
It's a short introduction. So, well, we met in university when we were 23, I think 23. I know it was 23.
Yeah.
And we were doing Spanish classes.
Yeah. Spanish.
By now, your Spanish is amazing. I never speak Spanish very often. I mean, it's also funny. You would rather do this podcast in Spanish than in English.
Yeah.
I would rather do it in English than in Spanish. Or we could do it in Dutch, but then,
Yeah.
we just want to make it difficult for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Why
Good
not?
challenge.
Um, Yeah, and so what I always remember from that time is that we started a minor in Spanish. So how it was half a year, a year. We
Yeah, I
did
guess.
1 year of Spanish classes, and what I always remember is then we had two classes, I think, together. We met in the first time, I believe, and we had a really good click.
Yeah.
Somehow we sat next to
We
each
sit
other,
next to each other exactly.
and for some reason, yeah, we really connected. And then I heard, I think 2 or 3 weeks into the classes or the course, that my father had an accident. He passed away very suddenly. So I, of course, was not there anymore.
Yeah.
I think you were wondering where I was.
I was definitely. I do remember that. I was like, oh, this really nice girl. She's not here anymore. What a pity. I really wanted to be friends with her.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember that when I was at home, and I think it took me several weeks before I came back because I remember at home, I was complete shock, of course, and everything was just completely different for me. And I remember sitting there and thinking, if I sit here the whole day, I'm going completely insane. So I need to just the only thing I could do was continue my studies and just pick it up now, or I had to wait another year because they said if you wait too long with the Spanish classes, then if you get back 2 months later, yeah, you can't follow the classes anymore. So I thought, well, I'd rather do something than nothing in the situation. So I remember going back and then you were there, and I remember I was just completely, like, trying not to cry the whole time, the whole day, basically. So it was just sitting in the class, like, trying not to cry, and then in the break, I went to the toilet, just like, "Ah," and then coming back the second half of the class and, like, sitting there again, and I remember you were like, "Oh, where were you?" And I told you, and you were such a huge, huge support for me at that time, and it was, like, something I always remember, and I remember I was in the class and some really difficult moments when the topics that came up were suddenly about death or stuff like that. And I remember one time I was sitting there and I was really like this, trying to hold back my tears, and I remember you put an arm on my leg and you were like, or a hand, and you were like, "It's okay," and I was like, that really meant so much. So
I
for me, that's
remember that.
so yeah, and since
Since then.
since then, we've, always been,
And we had a laugh as well. Even though it was a hard time for you, we laughed a lot during
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, it was like how do you say that in Dutch? You say like lichtpuntje. It was like
Yeah.
a little bit of light throughout everything. So
Yeah.
that's really been very
And
special.
I was very happy you came back. And I do remember I found it quite hard. I didn't know how to help you because we didn't even know each other.
Yeah.
But
Well, you did by just being there. Actually, come to think of it, and it was just it was just yeah, it was really. I think if I if that you wouldn't have been there and I didn't have that in the class, I don't know if I would have continued, to be honest, because I don't know, maybe I don't know, but yeah.
oh, that's so nice. You were a great help for me to remember because you knew a lot about grammatica?
Grammar.
Grammar. About grammar because of studying French and everything. So you helped me a lot with the Spanish grammar. I remember that too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And that's I don't remember this. Love grammar now. No, you're funny. You're funny. And now, of course, it's interesting maybe to mention too that you live in Chile most of the year,
Yeah.
partially part of the year in Spain as well.
Yeah.
Uh, so your Spanish is like
Yeah.
amazing.
I had no idea by then that this would happen, but
So
I wanted to practice more Spanish so I could go to South America to write my bachelor's thesis. Well, and then the typical classic story, I fell in love and now I'm married to a Chilean guy.
yeah,
So that's why. Yeah.
and you live a pretty interesting life because it's not kind of the regular 9 to 5 job kind of life.
Nope. Yeah.
So maybe you want to tell or you want to share something about it.
Yeah, not sure what we want to share in this podcast, but
Anything.
I
We
can
can cut it out if we don't want to
yeah.
share.
I can give like a summary of we live more or less, well, not very nomadic, but well, yeah, nomadic more or less. We travel a lot. My husband is a street artist. He paints with spray paint. He makes all these little paintings that we sell on the street.
And he's really good, by the way, because the
Yeah.
spray paints are like, that's what people want more often, but he's also like just regular paintings. He does it's really amazing.
Yeah, he does all different techniques, and the spray paint is just something that attracts people's attentions when you're on the street, a busy street, or a boulevard, or some tourist place. He paints life in front of passersby, and then people stop and have yeah a lovely experience just watching him paint, and some of them buy something, and that's where we make a living
Yeah, it's
out
great.
of. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it as well. It's so amazing. He starts and then it just becomes this like scene like super quickly. Like, wow.
Yeah,
Just
he's
from
quick. He's not because he's my husband. He's actually very good. Yeah, I've seen different painters.
yeah, but say no, but he is. He actually is. Yeah.
He is very good at what he
True.
does. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I'm fortunate to travel with him,
Mhm.
be his assistant. People always ask me like, "But what do you do? Like you're doing nothing because I don't paint." But yeah, we're just a team. We're always together, and I help him, and I do all the talking because people always ask questions. What do you do? How do you make a living out of this? Is it possible? Where do you live? How did you guys meet? Etc. Etc. So I I feel like my work is more of the social part,
Mhm.
not only because of not only because we need to sell paintings, because I'm a really bad seller.
Really?
Yeah, I really am.
Why you're doing is sales, but it still works.
No, I don't really. I don't even like it. I don't like to sell stuff. And we both have the same idea about this. We want the paintings to sell themselves, and if people want to buy something, great. And if they
Mhm.
don't, I give them the same amount of attention as somebody who does. Because I also find it very important to talk to people and maybe broaden a bit their mind. Because a lot of people just live yeah, like you said, 9 to 5 uh, jobs and lives that are quite stressful most of the time. Uh, yeah, and people are always very interested. How do you guys do that? How do you live this way? So I tell them about that. Not that everybody has to become a painter and start living a nomadic life, but it maybe helps them to see that it's also possible to do something else, or maybe follow your heart or your passions, or do something. It doesn't have to be big, but can be a small
No,
thing that you
totally.
maybe always wanted to do, and well, maybe we can inspire them a little bit. That's part of our job, as I see it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and we've talked about it before, and I
Yeah,
think it's really it is inspiring, to me as well. To just you can see, well, you can do anything you want in the sense that you don't have to walk the beaten path and do what everyone else is doing. If you know it feels right to you, then you can,
yeah,
and you'll be fine as well because it's always the fear of, oh my
yeah,
god, what if I'm doing something like that?
yeah.
But
The fear is
you'll
such a
be
big
fine.
part of it.
Yeah.
Fear of losing something, fear of not attaining what you want to, or um, I wanted to say something I forgot already, but yeah, that.
Was
So
fear a big thing for you when you started living this way?
yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. My own fears and the fears of my environment. So my family, friends, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to live that way? I had a master's degree in the end at university, uh, cum laude, so with honors. I got my
Mhm.
diploma, and I actually had a job offer at university. And then I was like, I'm going to throw this all out of the window and start traveling with this guy who sells paintings on the street.
Was that what you were thinking, or was it the pressure from family and stuff, or both?
Both.
Yeah.
Both, and it was very hard at first for me to find out which part is mine, or what part is mine.
Mhm.
Um, What or which?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. So what part is mine and what part
We'll
is
look
the
it up.
fear of somebody else, you know, um,
Mhm.
on me. So yeah. And the question was very often as well, how long are you gonna do this? Like, is it a year, half a year, gap year, adventure thing? And my husband, now husband, was always like, "What are these questions? We just live now. And
Yeah.
now we're doing this and we'll see what happens tomorrow." And he has this very
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, very relaxed and confident mindset.
He's very free-spirited that way. Yeah, it's very, like, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, and why would you question it? And why would you think about all the things that might go wrong? If it's going right, right now, it's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So yeah, I've learned so
And
much
since when it was that? How long have you been
together.
on the road, basically?
Well, we met 15 years ago. So 15 years we've been together. And first, well, I met him when I went to South America after the Spanish course
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
to write my bachelor thesis. So I came back to Holland, I finished my bachelor's, and then I went to Chile and we traveled for a year. So I had like this gap year at university. We traveled through South America, covering our expenses with the paintings. And then I came back to Holland to do a master's degree because I did want to finish what I started. But I did my master
Mm.
thesis as well in Chile. So I figured that out so I could go back there. And then after finishing my master's degree, we started full time doing this.
I love
And by then, I had no idea where this, well, we say in Dutch, the skipstrand,
it. The ship stress.
where this would lead us to, where this would go to. And I always had this feeling as well, like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to end up? And throughout these years, these questions are less important to me and less fear. I trust more in the process and what we're doing. And if it's not working out, we'll do something else. And I feel there's so many opportunities and possibilities in life, and we are so sometimes I only think Spanish words. We're so like trapped inside of mostly fear, yeah,
In a cage
in a
that we
cage.
create for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and the cage comes in so many shapes and
Mm.
forms.
Yeah.
You're here, you're
Yeah, yeah, like your rent, mortgage,
mortgage
whatever it
can
is.
be a
Mm.
cage, and your identity.
Mm.
Wow, big theme.
Yeah,
We can
absolutely.
talk hours about that, I guess.
Yeah, and also, yeah, what you said before, like expectations, right?
Yeah,
What other people expect from you, and then yeah, like you start to believe if I do things the way I want to do it, it's like I'm proving them right, basically.
yeah,
Because in the beginning you don't know, so you're
yeah,
kind of like safer to just go, with what they expect. But then again, I mean, they're your family. Hopefully, they still love you regardless. I don't know they do, but
they
like in the
do.
moment, what if you're in a family and they don't, right? It could also be a case for some people. But
Yeah, I was fortunate. They actually are now at a point that my mom often tells me, I'm so glad you choose this path because it's so good for you, and I see you're happy, and I don't think you would have been this happy if you would have stayed in Holland
no,
and living the way I was planning to. Uh,
I know you for so like I can't even imagine you would be just in that. Like I can't even. Of course, because also I know you haven't lived that, but it's also I can't even imagine that.
no, me neither.
Oh, no.
And I'm sure I could adapt, and I'm sure I could do it if I have to. But I feel very fortunate and very blessed that I was able
Mm.
to go this route, and still don't know what I'm gonna do next. And if there's a next, we don't even know. I don't even know if there's a tomorrow. So I just try to, yeah, live live by the day. And it doesn't mean that we don't plan. I mean, you can still plan ahead a
Mm.
bit, and it doesn't mean we just, throw our money away all the time and like there's no tomorrow. I mean, you can still,
It's always a balance. Yeah.
yeah, you can just do it balanced and out of this baseline of, it's okay, whatever happens. And if we hit rock bottom, then we will hit rock bottom. We'll figure out
That will
something
be
else.
something.
That
But
will be a different adventure. You can see it as an adventure instead of a failure or
But I think
something.
that learning to be okay with the unknown and, like, if we
Mhm.
hit rock bottom, we'll figure something out. I think that also comes from learning to trust and to
Yeah.
be okay with it, which I think brings us to the subject of meditation. Well, I'm really into meditation because since I've discovered it and fully got into it, I always say it like that because I really got the hang of it, let's say.
Yeah.
It's really changed my life in so many ways. And I know you've been into meditation much longer than I have, in particular Vipassana. And I thought, yeah, maybe it's interesting to share a little bit about, well, what Vipassana is, what it can do for you and what it's done for you. And when you started it, because I don't remember.
Vipassana meditation, I started around 2018, so that's about 7 years ago.
Mhm.
Before that, I had different meditation experiences and different traditions. I'm not sure if you want to go into that, but let's just start
Yeah,
with
sure. Yeah.
Vipassana
Well, what was your before you? Where did it start? The whole meditation journey, you could say.
journey. Yeah, well, I think we have to go way back for that. I just remember that I'm not even sure, but I remember that when we met in Amsterdam and during university, I followed my first yoga classes. Well, not actually my first, but the first time, yeah, when I really got into it and started practicing more.
Were those the restorative classes that you took me to as well at some point?
That
They
was
were
the
so
same.
good.
Yes.
They were amazing. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
The restorative yoga. Oh my
Yeah.
god,
Yeah, I
we did
remember.
it together.
Yeah, because I remember that got me onto yoga because restorative classes then I was doing with you then. I know you were doing other classes too. They were so amazing,
They
and it's
I
really
I have these same, I think, um recuerdos op z'n Spaans.
yeah, like memories. Yeah.
Of these classes because it was all new to me. And these restorative classes, you would just stay in one pose for quite some time with maybe a block or a towel beneath your shoulders or another body part. You would be in a sort of uncomfortable position for some time, and I would just be crying. I was like, what happens? I'm not doing anything tough. Still, it hurts, you know?
Suddenly everything comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there were all these different yoga asana classes. So we would do like the physical postures mode.
Mhm.
So during these yoga classes, we would do some meditation minutes, or maybe some
Mhm.
relaxation exercises, and that just was so profound to me. It was like this is a whole new world for me, feeling these kinds of things and being in silence and sitting with yourself. So those were the first moments, and that's when I knew, okay, I want to know more about his world. And then years after that, well, not so many years, and when I went to Chile, when I was in Chile. Um, Yeah, when I chose to when I choose this life
Mhm.
with my now husband to travel and everything through South America, I told him I want to learn more about yoga. I wasn't even I'm sure what yoga was, but just this thing that I was doing in these classrooms in Amsterdam. So I followed a yoga teacher training course, your classical 200 hours teacher training. But this one was very special, at least for me. I found this Chilean teacher. So he's from Chile, but he had lived for so many years in India. At the moment, he lives in Finland. So he travels quite a lot, spreading his knowledge, actually, his teachings. And a very special man. And it was very sort of hard to find him. He had no website or no, below the radar. How do you say that? It was just, it felt that was sort of meant to be. And I found him and I had a one-on-one teacher training because there was nobody else. It was just me and him. And then he had one other student who was doing the same training, but during over a period of time. And I would do it in a month or something, like in a few weeks.
Mhm.
I was just all day with him. And this girl would be there once in a while. And some students would come to take his classes. It was a really, yeah, tiny group of people. And he was so experienced and so much wisdom. And yeah, he taught me with him, I would have my first meditation minutes.
Mhm.
Um, it was actually a meditative yoga teacher training. And I found it so hard. Oh my God. Do you remember your first minute? It would be like 2, 3, maybe 5 minutes. It would feel like an hour, right?
That's good. Well, yeah, well, when it comes to meditation for me, just very briefly, but I used to try to meditate, get into it, and then I did these like, short meditations like through an app or something.
Uh-huh.
And I sometimes, yeah, it's very hard to get into, but I also had times that it really worked, and then I felt like, "Wow, I really felt that feeling afterwards. This is great." But then a lot of the times I didn't, so it was kind of hard to stick with it and continue it until I had my what I call my awakening in the forest a few well, several years ago. And that's when I had some opening. I guess people say it's Kundalini awakening. It could be soft Kundalini awakening. I'm not 100% sure, but something happened. Something opened up where I suddenly had this experience of like everything's like connected to each energy. We're all one. We're just our own. We just put our own blocks in our way, and it's not the reality. Not really. And that for me, that feeling was so profound that after that, I was like, "Wow, I wanna." That's the feeling I wanna go back to. So that's when I really was hooked on meditation, and it was very easy for me after that to get back into it because I just really enjoyed it immediately. So I went from yeah, finding it hard to do, just suddenly being launched into that experience. Then I was like, "Oh, now I get it." Now I get the point of meditation. And now I instantly understand where it can bring what place it can get you to. And that's when I really changed for me. But I didn't have the same yeah, gradual experience like what you told me. I believe what I remember, by the way, from your training, with him, what you told me was that sometimes he would ask you a certain question. He said, "There's a question," and you had to meditate on the question, and then when you had the answer, there would be, like, another question, but that answer could sometimes take months until you found the answer through meditation, stuff like that. I found that so interesting.
Yeah, that's true. That's a process we actually, uh, did later on. So it wasn't yet in this course I was just talking about.
Oh.
This was later because I'm still in touch with him.
Mm.
We're still in touch, like, once in a while, send emails. And this was actually during the, um, corona quarantines, what do you call it?
Yeah,
When you
I
weren't
get
allowed to go outside,
yeah.
and I would be inside. I was in Barcelona by then. And that's when we had, like, a quite an intense contact
Mhm.
weeks of contact in which we did this process of him
Ah,
asking me
okay.
questions. And yeah, so but I had to be a lot more mature for that, because when I just started all these years ago, which was maybe in 2011 or 12, that I would do this yoga teacher training with
Mhm.
him. These were my first minutes of meditation. And
Actually, it makes sense because, when you're, of course, in the beginning and you struggle with getting into it, you even find 5 minutes long,
oh,
you are
too
not gonna
many.
go to a depth where you find these answers, of course. So it's like
No,
you need to build your skill because I
yeah,
always like to say that it's a skill, right? It's
yeah.
something you can really practice and you can deepen your practice and your skill. And then over time, you can go into really deep meditation, something opens and you get downloads answers. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it works like that. It just first you just really need to um get to know your own mind as well, and stabilize it a bit, because like they say, it's a wild animal. It's like a monkey mind, what they usually say.
Mhm.
So these first moments were very tough. I would be like, I'd be thinking these few minutes, like, when is it over?
You're just alone with your mind, right? If you're like your mind's
Yeah,
just all over the place and you don't wanna be
like,
alone with your
yeah,
mind, so you tend to just distract yourself, like,
exactly.
"Oh my god, I don't know, I'm gonna watch Netflix because I don't wanna have to think about this," or, whatever you do, smoke, eat, drink, whatever,
Any distraction.
any distraction. But when you actually have to sit with your own thoughts in a way,
Yeah.
it can become very confrontational, confronting, I don't know. And then, yeah, that all comes up. So you
And
have
then
to
you're
go through
face
the
to
discomfort.
face, just me and my teacher, and there's this pressure inside of me. I want to do things right because I'm very perfectionist, always been. And yeah, it was quite a journey, but still, it was something shifted. I wanted to know more about this, and I wanted to keep practicing. And afterwards, I went a few weeks, actually, a few 2.5 months or something, to India to stay at the ashram,
Mhm,
where this tradition, or like, I followed this meditation course based on his experiences, which are like
mhm,
sync of different traditions, a mix. But the basic, or like the core tradition, was one of what came from, obviously, from India, but this ashram. And I went there and I stayed there a few weeks, which was also very tough. because we would meditate an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, and I found it so hard. Oh my god, I would be crying,
I
really.
remember you did not like your time there very much, or I don't know if you didn't like, but it wasn't. I remember that your time there you mentioned wasn't very, like,
You know what
easy.
happened, I guess? No, it wasn't easy at all, and I had these expectations of going into this blissful
Yeah.
community
Yeah.
and being all peace and happiness,
Yeah.
and it's not because meditation is hard work. So
What can be. It can also be, I wonder for people who are watching this and are like, "Oh my god, why would I do it?"
yeah,
It's also, it can also get you to that place of pure bliss. And so it's both. It can be very confronting because you can be there with your mind and you can't get it quiet and you want to do well and you're just like driving yourself nuts, right? In a way. But when you can get to that place, and there are, I think if you continue to practice meditation, there will be moments that it's just very difficult. You can't get into it. There will be moments that you can, and those moments you can, they will probably become more and more often. But that's when it becomes really, really valuable, and you
I think
get
it's
to a point you don't want to go without. At some point.
I think it's both actually.
Mhm.
Even the moments when it's difficult or challenging or you're not in this blissful state are just as valuable and
Yeah, I can see that.
mm,
I can see that for sure. Yeah.
as important as the other as these blissful
Mhm.
moments. And I think my problem was that I was just attached or desiring only bliss and happiness, and that wasn't happening. So that's why it was so hard. And it was also quite hard because I didn't really know what I had to do. I was a bit lost. I was like, okay, I'm sitting here for an hour. What do I do now? And in this ashram, the instructions were very little, and I was around the time that there was a shift in the spiritual leader had just passed away. So there was somebody else who was taking up this the job, how do
Mhm.
you say that, of being the spiritual guide. So there was this transition mode and it was a bit chaotic. And I mean, I think that didn't help either.
Now, how did you? Because I can imagine if you don't know what to do, basically, and you sit there and you just kind of like fly. I can imagine you just sit there and you just are alone with your mind. Then you can easily sit there for an hour and just think about 50 things, and the hour has
Passes
passed,
away, yeah.
and you're like, okay, that was that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But I mean, how did that change throughout the time you were there, or did you get some insights through just doing that, or how did that go?
I don't really remember, but I do remember that all these different hours of meditation were different. So that was like a really important lesson. So every hour, every minute is different. It
Mhm.
all changes all the time. That was really some a valuable lesson, and also just to start to get used to being quiet and quieting my body as well, because the body also wants to move all the time, and it's uncomfortable because you're sitting in this cross-legged position, and this hurts and that hurts, and yeah, suddenly you have to go to the toilet, or you have an itch, or you're hungry, you're thirsty, or you fall asleep, or you're bored, or you don't know what to do, or your mind flies off everywhere, and um, just to get a bit used to that, like
Mhm.
calming down body and mind, even though I didn't know very well how to do it. In the end, it was an amazing experience. But still felt a bit lost after that. I still didn't know how to integrate meditation in my daily life because I still was like, what am I actually supposed to do? Am I supposed to do something? Or, you have obviously you have different traditions and different
The thing
practices. And
Yeah, no, I was just thinking what you said before, like when, the moments when it doesn't go well, even though that's obviously not how you want to word it, because,
yeah,
it's all part of the practice and you need all those moments to learn and to improve it. So I agree, I get that. I just feel like, if you have moments that, for example, if I sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna meditate and
mhm,
my mind's very busy and it's just not a good moment for me to meditate. I don't go as deep into meditation. I can still feel more calm afterwards. So that's definitely worth it always. But sometimes it's just not, which it doesn't feel like it's helped me a lot in that moment. And when I can go really deep into it, I really feel afterwards just like I just feel really blissed, or it really helps me to release something. And for me, that's a big part of the value of it, and a part is also learning to let go of things. So when you notice a tension, when you notice there's a thought that you hold on to, you notice there's something in the body, to release it. And I feel that for me helps to really trust more in life and in
Mhm.
situations, you know? So it's that whole practice for me that makes it very valuable. But I can imagine when, if someone's listening to this and thinks
Mhm.
maybe want to get into meditation, I can also imagine, but if it's half the time it's like that, then
I'm
why would I want to try, you know?
I'm not really, like, selling meditation at this moment. You see, I told you I'm a bad seller.
It should say, I don't know.
So, what was your question? So why would you try if it's so hard? Why would you do it? Or
No, no, actually, I don't know what my question was anymore. Maybe there was no question. It was just an interjection or something. I don't know. Yeah, yeah, I just find it interesting because I remember we've talked about Vipassana before as well, which is the specific technique that you started to pick up
yeah,
after.
we're not even there yet.
No, we're not even there yet.
An hour passed.
True, exactly. It's gonna be very long.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
fine. It's fine. We can 3 hours, no worries. Um, but I remember that, yeah, that you mentioned as well, it's about learning to observe things
Mhm.
as they are. You
Yeah.
just accept things as they are and say, "This is how it is." It's always fleeting. Things change, and it
Mhm.
become okay with just how it is.
Exactly.
And that acceptance, and I feel that's also a part of what we talked to before when you said uh, to live your life in the way that you want to live it, but also comes with a risk because what if things do go wrong? What people say might go wrong. You're like, well, even if we hit rock bottom, we trust that there will be something, that something will work out. But I think that trust is also something that with meditation you can help your nervous system get used
Mhm.
to be more less anxious about what could potentially go wrong because you learn to observe your mind, your thoughts, and just let it go when it appears.
Mhm.
So I think that's a really big part in, you know, for me anyway, daring to live the life, build the life I want, basically, or do the things I feel are right for me, even though there's 100 reasons why maybe I shouldn't. It's like the meditation really helps me to trust, to be okay. It's just a thought.
Mhm.
I can let it go,
Mhm.
and I can do what I feel from my heart I should be doing, despite all the other fears and things that come up. But I feel meditation for me, it's really important part of going through that process.
Oh, that's
So I
beautiful.
don't know how is that for you? Maybe that's the question.
Meditation has brought me lightness. Not lightness, well, also lightness of a light, but also in comparison to heaviness. So things get less important and less grave, we would say in Spanish.
Like heavy or
Like,
serious or something?
well, serious.
Mm.
Yeah. So I just feel more light and yeah, and not so much guided by fear. And yeah, maybe it's trust, but it's more than trust. I think it's um this it's even hard to find a word for these kinds of things, I always find. Um it's just not as serious anymore because I don't take things that serious anymore. And it doesn't mean that you cannot take any action that's important, yeah. But I'm not that as attached to the outcomes. I think that's it.
Mhm.
So whatever happens, okay, the outcome might be different than what I expected. Um, but that's also okay because I'm less attached. And it doesn't mean I'm a saintly person and I go around being detached to everything. No, obviously, I still have lots and lots to practice but I think that's similar to trust.
Mhm.
So instead of saying, okay, I trust more, yeah, I do, but I also feel less, I care less if things go different. And
Is
yeah,
it is it also that when you notice that throughout your day every day, or is it like specifically in moments when something happens that you don't want or don't like or something, that you go to meditation immediately and like, okay, or is it just ingrained in your system, do you feel?
want it to be ingrained in my system, but I still have to practice for it. And that's what Vipassana has taught me because after these experiences in this ashram and I tried to meditate, still not sure what I was doing. in 2018, I set my first Vipassana course as taught by Mr. Grenka. I just
Do
make
you
this
want to explain a
distinction.
little bit about what Vipassana is for
Yeah.
who doesn't know?
Yeah, so maybe some of the people listening know or have heard about these 10-day Vipassana courses. There's different traditions and different teachers teaching Vipassana, but the ones I usually follow, or I follow actually, I'm more or less dedicated to, are taught by Mr. Gwenka.
Mhm.
And these are the more or less famous Vipassana 10-day courses. And Vipassana means seeing things as they are. It's insight meditation. So what I really like about this tradition, obviously there's lots of traditions, different meditation tradition, different practices, different schools. And I definitely I first definitely do not want to say that one is better than the other. I think we all are different personalities and we have
Mhm.
different mindsets or different traditions or practices just um yeah, work better for one and the other. So
Mhm.
for me, this Vipassana meditation as taught by Gwenka works, and it really helped me to maintain a stable meditation practice. So after all these years of sort of searching, when I said my first course, I was like, oh, I'm home now.
And what is it about the particular style of meditation that you feel is why this is it?
What I really like about this, or what resonates with me, is it's very practical. So you get really like practical instructions. So this
Mhm.
is what you have to do, or this is what you're supposed to do.
That you were missing in the ashram.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah.
like, suddenly there's all this.
And in the ashram, I do have to make the side note, they practice japa and ajapa meditation, which means that they mentally repeat a mantra,
Mhm.
which turns into a non-mental mantra. So it's just repeating
Mhm.
more or less, um, behind, not further than the mind. Um, and there were a lot of also rites and rituals in the ashram that we would do, like ceremonies and stuff, and that just didn't really fit with me. I wasn't. I felt like I was doing something I had to believe in, and I wasn't really believing in. And this mantra repetition, you could be initiated into the tradition, and I was actually invited to be initiated, and then you would get your own mantra that you could always like practice, and it helps really to calm down your mind and
Mhm.
get one point in mind. But it just didn't. Yeah, I didn't feel like this was for me.
Mhm.
And then this Vipassana meditation is very. I find it very down to earth, non-dogmatic, no rites, no rituals, nothing you have to believe in, no one you have to worship. You just sit there in a course. It's a 10-day course in which you meditate 10, almost 11 hours a day. So you're just sitting there on your mat, which is quite intense. You start at 4:30 in the morning and the day ends at 9:30 in the evening. Um,
You sit there in like blocks of time and then you have some breaks in the middle.
Good question. Yeah.
Right? Like
Blocks.
I think
Yeah.
that it
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Yeah. Good. There's blocks of an hour or an hour and a half or
Mhm.
2 hours.
Mhm.
So the day is divided in these different
Mhm.
blocks, and in between these blocks, you have either 5 or 10 minutes just to stretch your legs, walk around, go to the bathroom, or you have a break in which you eat,
Mhm.
which are a bit longer. Um, and like I said, it's called insight meditation, seeing things as they are. You What you do is you observe your own physical and mental structure. So the only thing you do is observe whatever you experience in and on your body and also mind. So it's so very practical and um, you don't have to believe anything or recite anything, or it's so down to earth. I
Mhm.
think that's what I wanted to say.
Mhm.
That it was really good for me. It really helped me because I'm a very um, like intellectual person. I really like to learn stuff and read stuff, and But this is just feeling.
And, like, it needs to like, the instructions also what you're gonna do, it needs to make sense. Like, you just wanna be, "Okay, what am I
Yeah,
what do I need to do?" And, you know?
yeah.
So I can imagine that that's yeah.
And for me, it did. And um, it's like different steps, but one of the first steps is to calm down the mind. You practice a certain meditation in which you focus on your breath, which you do the first days. And then the last day, the second, not half, it's like one third of focusing the mind and
Mhm.
two thirds of actually practicing Vipassana, in which you observe your physical bodily sensations. Anything you actually truly feel and on your body. It can be heat, cold,
Mhm.
can be itching, it can be pressure, pain, strain, throbbing, any real physical sensation. Um, so that made it sort of easy. It's not easy, but I knew what to do.
Mhm.
And
But, I remember when you came back from your first Vipassana that you had, like, like, you were like, "Wow, this is it, right? This is amazing." You had such a deep experience,
yeah,
and it was 10 days,
yeah,
and I remember you told me the instructions were to, like, really turn inward, so you don't look at people, you don't really connect with other people there, and
yeah,
I remember that you were like, I'm going to do this perfectly."
yeah.
So you didn't do that, so it really was a fully inward experience. You had a great experience with it, but there's also sometimes people that find it extremely difficult or they don't feel that way. So I also wonder if you would go into this without any meditation experience. Do you think that could still be that way, or how do you see that?
Good question. Well, I think that's so hard to answer because I think it definitely depends on the person. I mean, I had some meditation experience, but I had never sat for 10 hours, 11 hours a day, 10 days in a row. That was just die hard.
I haven't either. Like,
So,
yeah.
but most of the people are fairly new to it.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people have never sat maybe even 5 minutes in their lives. So
Yeah.
we all live a very different experience during these courses. And
Mhm.
some people leave on the first, the second, the third day, or maybe even the ninth day. Some people do one course in a lifetime and that's it, never come back. Some people stay and
Mhm.
keep practicing. And so anybody can try. I don't think you need to have any meditation
Mhm.
experience to go there. And it's a good thing you said it's a silent
Mhm.
course. So we practice noble silence,
Mhm.
which means you don't speak. But if you have any practical questions, you can ask the management, and if you
Mhm.
have any questions about the technique, you can talk to a assistant teacher. But we don't talk
Mhm.
the other students, and we actually try to not even communicate in any way. So we don't look at each other or
Mhm.
hold the door or anything.
Mhm.
Or you do try to sort of not slam the door in somebody's face, but you just try to live in your own experience.
Yeah.
Um,
Which you would notice if you were doing it, if you were in your own experience. You just go through the door, you don't
yeah, and I really
you
did that first course, like you remember very correctly. I didn't really read the website, so the only thing I read was the timetable
Mhm.
and the code of conduct. So I knew what I was,
Mhm.
supposed to do and not do, but I didn't want to know anything about the technique. I just said I want to go into this completely without
Mhm.
expectations because when I went to this ashram in India, I had all these expectations and that
Mhm.
was a bit of a barrier for me. So I said, no expectations. Let's just go into this blindly and see what happens and give it my all. I really went there saying to myself, I'm going to give it my 100,000% because I really feel like I want to integrate
Mhm.
meditation into my life and I don't know
Mhm.
how to do it. It wasn't a very good moment in my life either. I had a bit of difficult months before that. So I was like, it's now or never, you know? I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Mhm.
Something has to change. So that helped as well. I really, really, truly followed the instructions. I think that's the most important um, thing I can say to you if you ever go to a Vipassana course, follow the instructions as closely as you can,
Mhm.
because they're made for some reason. Um,
And then make sure you go to if you go to do a Vipassana course, make sure you do it from the official organization, right? That's like or I don't know if it is an organization, it's just volunteers that
Mhm,
teach it. I know you also volunteer.
mhm.
Um, there's different places I don't think they're trying to they don't make any money on it. It's based on donations, I believe you
Great,
said.
yeah.
So it's actually like it's not some I think it's important to mention that it's not some guru thing or something where, when you say follow the instructions, there can also
Yeah.
be certain spiritual movements where you're like, I don't think you should
Oh,
follow the instructions, kind of thing.
very
But
interesting.
and you're like, you need to really learn how to stay with yourself and feel what's right for you. And
Yeah.
I think that's, in a lot of cases, that's like when you do spiritual practice and stuff, you really start to learn and what is it like for you? What do you feel? What do you need? What are your what is your purpose? All these things. Um, and I think meditation can really help with that.
Yeah.
So it's funny, you say to learn a certain technique, really follow the instructions for that. And I think it is important, to go anywhere, follow the instructions and know it's actually like a proper, a
I'm so
place where
I'm
that
so
is safe
glad you
to do
say
that,
this.
right?
Yeah.
So I
I'm
just
so
wanted to
glad
say,
you're making these comments because I speak out of this, like, quite a few years of experience, and I forget about all these details that for me are so obvious. So I'm really happy you say this. And yeah, when I say follow these instructions, follow the instructions, I mean the meditation instructions.
yeah.
Um, uh, if it feels right for you, that's very, very, very true. And if it doesn't, then you can always leave the course, and you're not in a prison.
Yeah.
I mean,
You don't have to stay. You're like, if you
yeah, you
don't
don't
want to,
have
if
to
you still like
stay.
it, you can go.
You sign up with the intention to finish the 10-day course. Obviously, the volunteers there will try to convince you to maybe give it another try if you decide that you want to leave. Why? Because they compare it, well, the teacher compares it with a like an operation. When you go into a physical operation in the hospital, and your body is all cut open, you're not going to say to your doctor, well, I'm going to leave in the middle of the
With that
procedure.
stitches, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
So that's exactly what to say. So you're like in a mental operation.
'Cause you're opening something up and you kind of you've set the intention to do I really believe in intention.
Uh-huh.
So you're going into something and you're already, like, on a soul level, you're preparing for this experience. So you're kind of opening yourself up to that and to go, you know,
And
oh,
and get
go
and
beyond
get
the mind.
to the last day, because the last day is like the stitching day.
Yeah, right.
There's this really beautiful new meditation technique they teach you, and
Oh,
you
so it's also
stitch yourself up
yeah,
more or less.
right.
And you have like this day in which you start talking again to the other students, and in between day before you go back home. Else it might be quite a shock to leave on any certain other day. However, you can definitely do that, and you're not nobody will force you to stay.
Mhm,
And also a very good thing you said is it's all run by volunteers. It's all donation based. So the moment you sign up for the course, you don't have to pay anything. And when the course finishes, you can,
mhm,
if you want to, leave a donation of your choice, like however much financial room you have, you can leave a financial donation. You can also donate your time by going as a volunteer to
mhm,
a next course, etc. And you said you make sure you go to the official organization, but there's a lot of different schools,
mhm,
also teach meditation, Vipassana
mhm,
courses, which might also be very good. I have no clue,
mhm,
but the ones I have experiences with are taught by S.N. Cuenca.
mhm,
And these are
mhm,
they're all over the world. So if not, I'm not sure, but I think it's about 250 countries
mhm,
with Vipassana meditation centers in this tradition. So you can just sign up in any country of
mhm.
your preference,
Yeah.
and the instructions and the schedule, and it's all the same throughout all these different centers.
I was thinking for a moment, like, because if someone's watching this or listening to this and thinks, I would like to get into meditation, but that sounds like way too much. I
Uh-huh.
mean, yeah, I think it's really possible to start small, few minutes, and build it
Yeah.
up from there, and that's great. But it can also help to do, I think, to do. And again, I have not done a Vipassana week, so of 10 days. So I know it's for you, but I can also imagine if you find it very hard to do, you go into this course or this retreat that you're there and you committed to be there. You set the intention to be there and to do it. So it's kind of a good way to, you know, go into the deep end and just
Yeah,
pull in and just get
exactly.
used to it, you know?
Yeah. It's
I
like a
can
deep
imagine.
dive.
Yeah.
I mean, if you sign up for it, you're already committed, I guess. So if you feel this interest to do it, then
Mhm.
definitely, even without experience, you can, no problem. Lots of people do it like that.
Mhm.
Uh, they're open for everybody, so there's no restrictions. What you do have to sign a form, or there's lots of questions when you
Mhm.
sign up. So because it's all run by volunteers, I do have to make sure people are not in some very difficult mental problem at
Right.
the moment, because we're all volunteers if something
Mhm.
happens, etc.
Mhm.
But yeah, you can definitely always give it a try. And if you think like it's too hard, then you can definitely start by doing meditations online. There's so much offer.
Yeah, absolutely.
The offer is like infinite.
And
So
anything that you feel called to do, you know, if like you said before, for some people it's Vipassana, for some people it's other types of meditation. I also don't believe there's one, this is
no.
the one right way for everyone. It's just try things out and then you just, you know, be open to different, you know, different types of meditation if you want to try it and just see what's right for you. Because
Mhm.
for some people, the focus on the body really works. For some
Yeah,
people, there's other ways that works better.
yeah,
I think any of them. I like to mix things up. But yeah, it's just going with learning to feel what's right for you and to just
mhm,
give it a try.
yeah,
And yeah, just going with the intention to have an experience
yeah,
and without, like you said, without high expectations, because then you can only set yourself up for, you know, so-called failure, even though there is no failure when you meditate, because the whole
mhm,
point is to observe the things as they are and
yeah,
learn to accept what is. So there never really is failure, and that's the beauty of it, but can still feel that way, I guess.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I wanted to one more thing I wanted to ask you, and that is, when did you've been a few years ago, you've been through a very difficult time in your life with the B12 shortage,
Yeah.
and I wanted to ask you a little bit about how that has been for you and how meditation has helped you through the process as well.
So yeah, I I fell ill with a B12 deficiency in 2020, just when the corona crisis started all over the place. And but this has nothing to do with that. This was just in that period. I was a vegetarian by then for already about 14 years, in which like at least a year or maybe even two, I almost followed the vegan diet as well. Um, and then all of a sudden, I got all of these strange, painful feelings in my legs. It started in my right leg, upper leg, and then it yeah, spread out throughout my entire right leg, and then my left leg, and my hips, my hands, and my face, and I had all these very strange feelings, strange sensations. Yeah.
Nerve pains or something? I think you would translate it as, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there might be the translation nerve pain, so but I had no idea what it was. I started to just feel a burning sensation. It started out as sort of feeling like hot water trickling down my legs. Ended up being like somebody putting like a gas, what do you call those things? A gasbranden?
Like a flamethrower or something.
Yeah, like somebody with a flamethrower like
Oh,
onto my legs all the time. That was the sensation I had, and they were heavy and after a few months, I even had trouble walking. Um, and I was in a lot of pain all the time, and I had no idea what was going on. Turns out I had a B12 deficiency. I wasn't aware of
Mhm.
because my B12 serum values, so it's well as if you take blood tests,
Mhm.
they all came back okay. So it was really like close to the bottom line of what was like the reference
Mhm.
thing, but never below. So doctors would say that everything's fine. And I think it was my mom. I was in Spain at that moment, and I would call her and I would tell her how bad I was feeling. She found out something about B12 and being a vegetarian, and then yeah, I went to Holland and I was treated by with specialists
Mhm.
in Holland. And I received B12 injections, intramuscular injections, now already for 5 years almost.
Mhm.
And there was a time that in which I thought that I would end up in a wheelchair.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah, I remember how bad it was. Yeah. Yeah, really scary. Really scary.
very serious?
Mhm.
Um, the cause, it's important to tell as well, most probably my diet, but also probably absorption.
Mhm.
My body doesn't absorb
Mhm.
top correctly, but I never really found out like there's no I did all of these tests and exams and stuff and nothing came back that this is the cause of.
Mhm.
Since my mother and my sister also really mentioned it B12 injections, not being completely vegetarian either. My mom has this history,
Mhm.
probably family thing, but also very important if you follow the vegetarian, especially vegan diet.
Did you take supplements back in the day? But when you because I think if you eat vegetarian, you can pretty much if you still eat like eggs and stuff like that, cheese, then you can still get your B12, right? In a good way. Or do you need supplements when you're vegetarian as well, you think?
I think they say that you can, but you do have to eat dairy
Yeah.
products or eggs on a daily basis and quite some
Quite a lot to
yeah,
make up
I
for it.
remember how much and I didn't really track my
Mhm.
macros and say that. I would
Your macros, yeah, but it's like when I think when you're I know that when you're on a vegan diet, then you really need to make sure that eat the supplements you have to, you know,
yeah.
turn it up a notch to really make sure that you get everything you need. And I think with vegetarian diet, you of course still do as well, but it's a bit easier because you still eat animal products.
Yeah.
Um,
Still
but still,
after so many years, it takes years to feed your stock,
Mhm.
your liver,
Mhm.
and if you don't
Mhm. Top it up, or you can, yeah,
like
then it goes, yeah.
it took a long time. I had always been weird symptoms before, but I never really
Mhm.
paid attention to them. Like really tired and brain fogs and
Mhm.
sad that are part of the show. My body part of
Mhm. And do you need to keep taking those shots,
yeah.
or is it you still the same amount as in the beginning, or is it different?
Started off on there was a point that I would have 12 shots every other day, and now I'm on one shot a week,
Mhm.
and I hope to get back to like one a month. Um, I just have to see how I feel and just dump the energy level
Yeah.
every day, every other day in between, and then try that for a few months and until I feel it's really based on symptoms. Can't test my blood now to check the need, and that because it will always be on my blood because I let you shot.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, I think your question was how does meditation help?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And if it helps you with it,
yeah,
you
it
know?
definitely did,
Mhm.
and it still does. During this like the worst months of this process, I wasn't even able to really sit up.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
stay down most of the time,
Mhm.
and you can also be taking you down.
Mhm.
However, sleep is then very dangerous because you fall asleep after if you lie down and that day. Um, but so I wasn't really practicing formal meditation as in sitting or lying down for an hour. So
Mhm.
try to apply the technique because, like I just said, Vipassana meditation is a sort of the body scan to say it in simple words.
Mhm.
And my body was aching so much that I did not want to do a body scan because I didn't want to feel this pain.
Yeah.
So I was really resisting it. I was having so much aversion towards my pain. And Vipassana actually teaches you to remain equanimous with every experience you have. So what's also very important, you didn't even mention that, for Vipassana teaches us that instead of feeling a desire or attachment to something, some happy meditation experience or pleasant sensations, or feeling aversion towards unpleasant sensations or pain or unhappy meditation experience we're talking about, or
Mhm.
other unpleasant things, we try to remain equanimous, which means more or less balanced, which means not reacting towards any sensation or any experience.
I just wonder, how do you do that when you're really in excruciating pain? Because I remember you were like saying it's like a flamethrower. You feel a flamethrower going over your legs the whole time. How can you stay balanced, when you
That was very hard. And there were moments I was like, this because it really taught me about the impermanent nature of it.
Mhm.
So, but
You thought this moment will pass too or something?
it's like, sorry for my finish. For impermanence, I'm in so much pain.
Yeah.
This is never gonna end. So these were all these emotions I was going through, and I would say to myself, "No, let me tell you to keep your body work is permanent.
Mhm.
This will also change. At least it will change." And that's so beautiful. That's a meditation. When you go into your actual physical feeling and you try to like really see it for what it is, you can divide it and dissect it and like really feel, okay, what do I feel? Because the pain you feel is the mental label you put onto the physical sensation.
Mhm.
And the physical sensation might be burning, like cancer or whatever other unpleasant feeling. But the fact that that you label it as unpleasant, as pain, is your mental suffering.
Mhm.
Um, and there you have this key in your hands. It's a tool key can influence your mind.
It's basically to make it even worse. Like you're already feeling this, and it's like all the things you attach to it make it even worse than it already is.
Make it even worse because you don't want to feel that.
Yeah.
Don't want to feel it. And I had so much aversion and I wanted to go back to my former life without pain or go into the future, into some future life without pain. And I didn't want to live this, I
Mhm.
want to live this life with this pain. So maybe I wasn't sitting like really in formal Vipassana meditation, but I would practice it a certain way. I would just start my body skin, you will start from the top of your head. And when I like was going with my awareness down through my face and neck and then shoulders, and I would come closer and closer towards the most painful area of my body, which was my
Mhm.
lower limbs. I would already start to panic. I didn't feel it. And I just calm down, just observe, do nothing. That's what the instruction for Vipassana. Just observe, do nothing. Observe reality as it is, not as you would like it to go. And then there would be moments that I would be able to observe without reacting.
Mhm.
And those moments are so precious because those moments take you out of this, even though it's just an instant, but out of this suffering for a moment and into this relaxing. Your mind relaxes.
Despite the intense pain, you can still find those moments of intense, in a way, relaxation despite all that. Yeah. It's amazing.
You're not hating anymore. You're not like, I don't want
Mm.
this. Just in the moment.
You're not resisting, you just suddenly let, yeah. Mm.
So even though it were just little moments and maybe they were not a formal practice, I would just yank out, okay, just do some sort of a body scan if I can. And these were so liberating. And all the time I felt that I was sort of carried, I felt cradled by the knowledge that I had Vipassana as a tool and the things that the experience I already had before and the realizations of impermanence of the sensuousness
Mhm.
and of suffering being part of being in nature. And I knew I had this way out of suffering. And so it helped me a lot. Doesn't mean I was in bliss all the time, being happy with my experience. No, I wasn't. But it helped me so much. And then afterwards, when medication helped me to physically recover a bit, I said, I took us in the course again.
Mhm.
And that was very tough because I was stuck for a lost lesson.
Yeah.
And there was 10 hours a day facing my hate. And then I was like,
It's very brave to do that, I think, in that mind.
actually, during the course, I thought to myself, I was a warrior.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say, "I wondered why am I here?" Yeah, but you're yeah. Well, you were. You are. Absolutely.
I was, still fighting.
Yeah.
Of course, first, was still fine.
But I think also was still also a warrior and keep trying to find a way to, like, get through that in a better way, in a more balanced ways. It's still like yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm definitely 100% sure that I can say that meditation has been
Mhm.
the best help when with a turbulent life.
Yeah.
And then sitting next course or practicing at home. There's so many layers to it. To medication, and as soon as you realize it, because it's so important to have have the practical experience.
Mhm.
Experiential knowledge is so
Yeah.
uh, remains, and you just read about it, or
You got
it's important as well, but it doesn't really like get into you.
No, it's a practice. I totally agree. You can't like well with most things, I guess, but you can't really learn meditation from a book. You have to really experience it, practice it. You can also not just do it once and be great at it. Yeah, well, maybe there's exceptions. I don't know, but like it's a practice. You have to keep practicing it to keep your energy light.
Yeah,
In
this
the end.
lightness is at the end, and it helps me to remain aware of the fact all is ephemeral
Mhm.
and impermanent,
Mhm.
constantly changing, simply flux once flow. And where is this me, this mind, this I?
And that we are not our thoughts, we are not our bodies, not really. We are not our essence. And I think also in meditation when you can get a glimpse of that feeling of like there's another essence, I think that will change. I think that will change you. That will change your life because that knowing really gives another depth to what you experience to be reality, right? Because you think, well, what we're seeing, what we're doing is reality. Sure, it is a reality, but there's also another reality, and that I feel once you can tap into that, it changes everything, and it changed everything for me, and it's yeah.
Definitely does, and it still it doesn't mean that all the time, every day, 7 days in a week.
You're like in that state. No,
Yeah,
no,
I still even do that
yeah,
because we're so ignorant.
and it's why we have to keep practicing this preferably every day. Is constantly like pull yourself back to, and I feel though it when you consistently practice meditation, it does start to change your vibration, like or how you feel in daily life. Even if you don't meditate in a moment, you still feel you're different, and when you don't have to practice. And even with I think even with for anyone listening to this, it's like I'm gonna sign up for a 10-day Vipassana. I think do it, fantastic. Otherwise, if you're like, oh my god, no way, start with 5 minutes, build up to 15 minutes a day. I think if you just meditate for 15 minutes a day, I think consistently, and you just consistently do it, I think really everything will change. I really believe that.
Yeah, I think it's so important to that we start to get comfortable with silence
Yeah.
and with our own bodies and our own minds. We live in a society and in time in which we're so distracted by all these things around us, and we have all this technology. You see it in meditative yoga classes. People struggle so much to be, to quiet
Mm.
a little bit. And there's a whole other world there, to experience. And it's so, but
Yeah.
your body is not make you talk them. The nervous system.
It's just a moment of like what you also do in a calm yoga class like that is like to release the resistance for one moment to just because now when you're talking when you're just awake, you're basically always on in a way. So you kind of you're not something's not relaxed while you're talking, while you're doing something. But as soon as you deliberately, and not just when you sleep, when you deliberately just really relax everything, you just release that all that resistance for a moment, and then you allow in, you know, other energies and I always feel that you can allow flow to come into your life, and suddenly you can get insights that you can't get when you're doing stuff. It's like, when you're in the shower, suddenly you get this amazing idea, or you're walking in nature and suddenly you get this great idea. When you're focusing on doing something, you're sitting somewhere, you want to get an idea, you probably doesn't happen in that moment. So you need to, yeah, you need to be, yeah, I think it gives that too. Yeah.
And it's hard. Um, but I think so nutritious.
I love that nutritious. Also, when we're talking about the B12, you're like, you need to get, you're like, meditation is also nutritious. So get your, yeah.
I hope that you take care of the physical body. Yeah. But it's also important to keep your mind in the both in the related completely. So
And in line with that, maybe this is the tip, but do you have any tips for anyone who is going through either a B12 shortage, or any other chronic pain or things like that, that is listening to this at the moment, and might not be used to meditating? Is there anything?
I think there's a lot of mindfulness practices around pain. Um so we can start off with mindfulness. I think that would be very helpful already. Maybe not sign up for a 10-day Vipassana course yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, try some mindfulness practices and some relaxation
Mhm.
exercises. I mean, relaxation exercises are so um helpful. Uh, just maybe Google some relaxation exercise, lay down and follow some visualization or some body scan,
Mhm.
relax your body because we're in a constant like survival mode when we're in pain or going through difficult time in our lives, and our bodies tense all the time, and we resist on things.
Mhm.
Already doing some kind of relaxation exercise might help you to just relax, literally,
Mhm.
which is very helpful for your body to start um the process of
And it can also mean,
recovery.
yeah, absolutely. Because your nervous system goes into that relaxed state, let's say, and then you allow your body to heal. So that's why it's so important. But also, I was thinking, if you're not used to doing that, it can also bring up a lot of emotions because suddenly you're relaxing and you're trying to, you know, be there with your thoughts. Maybe if you have a lot of thoughts in a moment, which I guess we all do, but if you're not used to that, it can bring up a lot of emotions. But I think it's also very healing to learn to let those emotions be there and to let them out. And if you need to cry, then I always see it as a shedding, or the emotions are coming out. But I can imagine that can be difficult if you're not used to that. But that is eventually, I think, also the way through the resistance, I guess, through the pain.
Yeah, that was your question, right?
Like a tip for, yeah, that was, yeah,
Oh, I need
what
to
you
get
can do.
the
Yeah.
make sure you supplement the right way and
There's an institute, right? I think a B12 institute or something that you found. That's
Institute in
ah.
Rotterdam and Holland,
Mhm.
young Netherlands. I feel very fortunate that I had the opportunity to
Mhm.
go there because not in every country we have these questions. It's quite a difficult topic. It's quite um, um complex.
Mhm.
We'll need a whole nother podcast for that. But uh, yeah, I also started to eat animal products.
Mhm. You mean meat and stuff because you were eating like eggs and stuff before, right? You
Yeah.
were there. Well, not all the time, but oh yeah, right.
But now I eat meat and fish and just not every day,
Mhm.
every week. Yes,
Mhm.
I think it's also I found it very humbling
Mhm.
as well to just let go of this thought that I had to be a vegetarian
Mhm.
because I want to practice non-violence, ahimsa. Um, and I can also, I mean, at first I felt like I I cannot eat meat. That's I found it bad, you know?
Mhm.
Because I also found out that I had this subconscious feeling of being superior, being vegetarian.
Mhm.
I would never say that, but maybe didn't not even thinking out loud. No, I was think it was in the back of my mind.
Mhm.
I was doing the right thing and other people weren't. So it was very humbling also to find out that okay, I can also start eating meat again and not be so judgmental of it. Um,
Mhm.
they say the Buddha also accepted meat when it was offered to him and served him. So that helped me very much. How? So it feels right. And
It is funny because I just thought we are after this podcast, we are actually going to a book presentation of a Dutch woman. She written a book about, or she's written several books about surviving in the wilderness, living in the wilderness. She's actually for years and years, she's lived in the wilderness where they actually need to hunt as well because to survive they need to because in the area where they live. And that also made me think when you just said that. I thought, well, in certain cases or areas when you live in nature, that's the only way to survive. So, I mean, that gives the discussion another light as well, I find. I mean, of course, obviously to say the way we, are the industry and how we process, and that's awful, right? And I think, like, to be honest, I don't think there's anyone that doesn't agree with that. It's just that, yeah, there's nuances to this a lot, and that's sometimes left out of the occasion when we talk about this. But
and it'd be actually very interesting because is Dutch Daily where they're reading later on. She she had never eaten meat before.
oh yeah,
Raised her as a vegetarian.
right, right, right,
First she shot her
right,
herself.
right. Incredible, incredible.
I'm not giving him the suggestions here on shoot eating, but I just don't know how that's great. And very humbling as well too.
Mhm.
Because we're so attached to identity and also an identity of being correct vegetarian. You know, it's awesome, I think. So
Being better than someone else because we do something then yeah.
that my goal was also very
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was actually. It was fun. It was fun.